So I've been a big fan of breaking down characters in the Injustice franchise, and yes, I am a comic casual, so maybe my breakdowns aren't the best in the world, but they're to the best I could possibly do. And I've done quite a few different breakdowns. I've done why Injustice Wonder Woman was the true villain, why she wasn't the true villain, why Superman shouldn't be redeemed, and so on. But there's one common theme that I've seen on every Injustice video I've done, that in the comment section, there's kind of this idea that the writers of Injustice are the true villains of Injustice. And for a long time, I was sitting there and getting, I'm not gonna lie, kind of annoyed, because I was thinking to myself, why is it always the writer's fault? Oh, it's the writer's this, it's the writer's that. And I'm sitting there like, I would have no content to break down if I don't break down these specific characters. If every answer to every story is it's the writer's fault because they made the character that way, then what's the point of watching, reading, or playing anything? And I had to sit down and really think to myself, because I do thrive and I do kind of derive this channel off of the idea of flipping each side of the coin. At least that's kind of where my head's at. So I decided I'm going to look at it from the perspective of some of these commenters where they comment, well, it's the writer's fault that Superman is this way, the writer's fault that Batman is this way, Wonder Woman, and so on. And I want to talk about why the writer of Injustice was the true villain of the story. Now, I know there is technically two writers, or probably multiple, even after that. Tom Taylor did year 0 to year 3, and then Brian Buccellato, I believe that's how you say it. Correct me if I'm wrong, I'm sorry, did year 3 to year 5, and I'm not really sure after that if there's anything else that I'm missing. But these are the writers that did it, and a lot of people dislike the way they built their characters. So I'm going to be talking about 3 characters specifically, the 3 more or less main characters that I want to talk about, and the main characters of these type of videos. And I'm going to start with, well, what most people see as the villain, Superman. Now, Superman's an interesting one because Superman's actions are kind of warranted to a certain extent, at least somewhat, because his idea of basically keeping everybody safe by stopping all war is a good idea in theory, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. Now, to start with, Superman does kill the Joker, and that is one thing, and I do believe that that is, to an extent, a crime of passion. Yes, I know, for those lawyer heads or law heads out there, crime of passion normally involves a loved one, or a loved one cheating on you, and so on, but we can kind of invoke it similar in this regard. Crime of passion in terms of him actually being forced to kill Lois Lane and his unborn child, putting him so far gone, so mad, that he ends up killing the Joker instantly. That, in my opinion, is a crime of passion, and most people wouldn't put it past him for doing that. Now, this isn't where the writers are the true villain, because that isn't a problem, in my opinion, in terms of writing. Honestly, him even going to the extent of wanting to end all war is not a problem, in my opinion, at least for a writing standpoint. And inherently being a vigilante, less Batman, and more someone doing good things, but all for the wrong or very drastic direction of doing things, right? So these are all things that I believe are written relatively well in terms of the character of Injustice Superman. But then we get into the kind of the bad examples of where the writers, or where maybe some of you believe that the writers kind of made him go off the deep end, and logically speaking, it didn't make that much sense. Now, first of all, it's brutally killing Green Arrow in front of his parents. Maybe some of you would argue that, oh, well, Green Arrow, it was kind of threatening his parents, or it felt like it was like that, or Green Arrow shot his father in some renditions. But hey, man, this is all bad nonetheless, because he let the rage go off even with his parents begging him, literally begging him to stop. He beat his face in Green Arrow's face in. He beats him so bad and kills him. Now, that's horrible. And to stack on top of that, the fact that his parents are begging him, forgive him, it's okay, he's not bad, nothing's wrong, or whatever, right? So, all of these things are being said, but nothing is being done to stop it. Now, some of you may be like, okay, well, this was pretty close to his whole Lois Lane debacle, right? Maybe that's why. Maybe he was being or going through traumatic experiences. I got you. I hear that. But when the writing continues on to the funeral of Green Arrow or Oliver Queen, and a grieving Black Canary attacks him, and instead of understanding like, wow, this person is grieving like I was, like, well, what I went through losing a loved one, right? Same thing, or very similar to what Superman or Clark went through, he decides instead of actually just tanking the attack, which, by the way, a scream from Black Canary, yes, may hurt Superman, but is far from going to kill him. So he, instead of just tanking it and then apologizing once again, saying that he understands why she's mad and that he gets it, and he wants to apologize once again and apologizes, and then says he'll leave her alone forever, leaving, and that would be a good, mature thing to do for someone like Superman, especially in the stance that he's taking at the moment. But instead, he decides that he's going to grab her by her throat with intentions to kill her. Yeah, that seems like some very odd logic, especially when we're dealing with Superman basically saying he wants to end wars and crime and stuff like that. He is in fact becoming a criminal, especially right here. I mean, he's threatening and about to kill somebody that really hasn't done much wrong and is dealing with something that is literally something that he was dealing with himself. So you would think he would have some empathy, some sympathy for her, but obviously that wasn't the case. That's just one example of the, in my opinion, bad writing kind of with Superman. Now, we even could go further on where he murders Lex Luthor live on television instead of just locking him up for treason or some sort of thing like that. Now, that would make a lot more sense. Logically speaking, as this Superman, being that he is a little bit more tyrannical, you would think he would think, well, this guy's probably still useful. Yes, he betrayed us. Yes, he did this, but he's still a good person in the eyes of the public. So let me just throw him in prison and use this to enhance my image even more, or at least something of that manner. But instead he goes, I'm going to choke him out and kill him live on television and have everybody fear me. And now, I know he wasn't thinking that far ahead, but that's the action that was taken. It made everyone fear him, right? It made everyone think he was horrible. But that's not even the worst of it all. Instead of thinking to himself, oh, maybe I should look at their perspective. I did attack a quote-unquote, high-level figure, killing him. Maybe they would think I'm a monster. Maybe they would think that I'm scary, right? And instead of addressing that, he decides, nah, I'm gonna go attack innocent people that differ from my opinion. And the idea of differing from his opinion continues on when he kills Shazam, who is literally a hero, who's literally been helping him, who is the reason why he was able to defeat Lex Luthor in the first place. And Shazam disagrees with him, talking about how they need to put checks on him, or checks on all of them, by the way, not just him, all of them. So that includes himself and everybody else, to make sure that everybody feels safe and all the innocent people are okay. But guess what? He disagreed, so he got the laser beams to the head and was killed. Now, this just feels, in terms of writing, extremely inconsistent, right? I mean, I know some of you may argue and differ with this, but that's why I'm making the video in general. I don't even know if I agree with the idea that the writers are fully the true villains, but I'm going to argue this here because at the end of the day, these things that Superman was written to do feel massively inconsistent with what should have occurred. Now, I could see Superman going off the rails in terms of becoming that vigilante, becoming or a vigilante-esque person, not not a hero, not a villain, believing that killing is okay when dealing with world leaders that refuse to stop wars and stuff like that. And that's what was portrayed for a long time. But he began to go further off the deep end, and further and further and further. And a lot of these characters actually do weird and very odd things. And I'm going to talk about the very next person because, ironically enough, this video isn't just about Superman. This is also about two other characters. And the next one I'm going to be talking about is Wonder Woman herself. Now, for starters, Wonder Woman may have played a little bit of a minor role, or at least she's not technically the main villain, but people see her definitely as, and I'm one of those people that sees her as one of the main villains, but she is kind of like a step back necessarily, and her story is a little bit odd in my opinion. And the main reason why I bring that up is she decides to stoke a grieving man's worst fears, even though she knows what type of power what power can do when put in the wrong hands. I mean, she literally was used as the weapon in the wrong hands with her Steve Trevor. I mean, in this scenario and in this Earth, her Steve Trevor was a Nazi, and she was used by a Nazi who was on the wrong side of the war. So why does she feel in her brain and in her head that she should stoke someone that is way more powerful and use him as a weapon and possibly possibly sabotage themselves because she continues to stoke that fire? I mean, even when basically there's a chance that Clark can come down just a little bit. By the way, this is where like my head goes in terms of kind of being that in between vigilante, because maybe if she actually allowed Aquaman's message to be received by Superman. By the way, if you don't know already, Aquaman sent or relayed a message through Wonder Woman to Superman, basically telling him that if he needs someone to talk, that he's there to help. Now, that is something that Superman needed. Truly needed. And, well, we'll be getting to another character that could have given him that, but for now we'll continue with Wonder Woman. But Wonder Woman decides not to give him that. Just not relay that message. Not say a single word. That feels like an odd scenario and an odd take on this Wonder Woman. And Wonder Woman in general. I mean, why wouldn't she relay that? She really wanted Superman to go to the farthest of that edge. She was still getting what she wanted. She was still freeing enslaved women. She was still freeing people from captivity. She was still stopping wars. This message wouldn't have halted their progression on stopping wars. Not at all. It would have at least toned down and mild out Superman's personality and also his nature of grieving and his emotions. It would have actually helped. And I don't think, at least personally, that Superman would have been like, you know what? Thanks for offering the help and offering the support. Now I'm going to go back into prison. I just don't think that would have occurred. Now, you could argue that some version of Superman probably would have, but this version that we've been seeing or being portrayed, I just don't think that's the case. I don't think he would do that, but I do think he could have and would have toned back all of the things that he ended up doing in the future. So why would Wonder Woman just completely isolate, or what seems like isolate, Superman from all of the people that could possibly help him? These are massive issues, and I can go on about Wonder Woman being written as like a really, really messed up female character here. I mean, to the point that she tells another woman, another Wonder Woman, that she understands nothing. And yes, there is an argument to be made like, oh, well, that Wonder Woman didn't go through what this Wonder Woman did. But to say that she literally understands nothing that Wonder Woman is supposed to be is just completely wrong, right? It doesn't make sense. And frankly, it's kind of just off-kiltered a little bit in terms of that idea. Now, some of you may be wondering, who's the third person I'm going to talk about? Okay, most of you are probably not wondering. It's obviously going to be Batman. Now, Batman is an odd one, and he is definitely something, and normally, as a comic casual, you would hear me say, well, Batman's not the friendship type. He's not like a good dude in the sense of, oh, I'm going to be buddy-buddy with you, and we're going to be friends, and we're going to do this. But this Batman was basically told by Clark that he wanted Batman, or Bruce, to be the godfather of his child. So this would insinuate that their relationship, their friendship, was really good. Like, really good. So why would it be that Batman, Bruce Wayne, watches the Joker die by Clark's hands, and instead of consoling him first, touching the human side that was derived and stoked with emotion and grief, instead of trying to touch that side and calm him down and then eventually tell him, hey, killing was wrong nonetheless, and I understand that you're grieving, but you have to go away for a while now to put everybody else at ease, because now they're looking at a rogue or a kind of uncontrollable Superman. Instead of doing it that way, he tells Clark, you did wrong. Killing is wrong. That's it. That's final. I need to stop you. Wow, that doesn't feel like the best choice of action when you're dealing with a super-powered being that could pop the universe like a pimple. Or the Earth like a pimple, but, you know, some versions of Superman can pop the universe, I guess, but maybe I went to Dragon Ball with that one. Now, with that said, I know some of you will be like, well, you know, Batman's right, though. You can't kill. Like, you cross that line, you just can't do that. But then Batman has his own son, blood son, kill his arguably adopted son in that of Nightwing or Dick Grayson. And you feel that Batman has that loss. You feel it. He punches the hell out of some wood, shattering his hands, breaking his mentality, and frankly, he just kind of goes off the rails even further, in my opinion, like Batman himself does. Because how are you not understanding that your son, pseudo son, of course, adopted son, but, you know, his son, because let's be honest, Dick Grayson was his son just died. You are now feeling the same thing that Superman is feeling. And you needed to be consoled as well. Batman did need to be consoled as well, to calm down, get his head right, and continue on with the mission that he felt at the moment was the right mission to go across. But it didn't make sense. It didn't make sense. You would think that would pop in his head like, hey, I just lost someone great and personal to me. But then Superman, he lost someone as well. He lost his wife and his unborn child. Maybe that wasn't the right approach for me to approach the way I did. Maybe telling him that he's a criminal and that we can't be like them is the wrong way to choose to basically go about things. But no, he didn't decide to do that. We know the story and we know what happens after that. So it's kind of an odd way of writing certain characters, and I'm not gonna lie, I'm sure you guys have countless characters in the Injustice franchise and countless examples maybe for these three characters of why they were written or why they were written so poorly, and why the writers were the main reason why the Injustice whole situation happened and stuff like that. It's all the writers' fault. Yeah, I understand it. I decided that making this video was something I just needed to do, because to wrap it all up, I just want to say this. I don't really believe that we can analyze characters like this. And what I mean by that is, we can't just say, oh, well, it's the writer's fault that the character is like that, so on, and that's it. We have to analyze the characters for what we got. Now, I will say, in this video, as you can see, I was kind of able to look at the flaws in the writing based on the actions that some of these characters do take. But at the end of the day, when analyzing characters themselves, you kind of have to use what is given to you. And yes, the writers are the ones that provide that, but I can't just blame the writers for everything. That Wonder Woman is a horrible person because the writers made her that way. It's like, well, yeah, no duh, guys. No duh. And I'm not saying this to be mean or anything like that to anybody, but that's just, we understand that. We understand that the writers making a character a certain way is the reason why they are that way. But we got to analyze these characters a little bit deeper than that, than just blaming it or pointing the finger at the writers. But I would love to hear what you guys have to say. Do you think the writer of Injustice was the true villain? Do you think that we should be analyzing characters based on blaming the writer or analyzing them for what we are given? With that said, I hope you enjoyed the video nonetheless. And this was like an analyzation of some of these characters and how they were, or some of these characters in terms of like 3 of them, and how I saw the flaws or different flaws I believe they had in certain actions. And yeah, if you enjoyed, I hope you all enjoyed it at least. Leave a like, leave a sub, leave a comment down below. And YouTube believes that you will enjoy this video, so might as well go check it out, right? Why not?